Silly.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Like to call to order the April 8th, 2025 Select Board meeting for the town of Georgetown. This is gonna be recorded for our YouTube channel. To get it right every other week, it seems. First thing, we'll have a moment of silence in memory of former Fire Chief Paul Barabee, our Boston Post cane holder, John Jack Schneider, John Paul J.P. Schneider, and Nancy Barney. For now, so. Okay, is there any public comment?
Got a couple people in the room.
Perfect. And I know there is going to be at least one public comment from Ruth.
Hi.
Hi.
So thanks for letting me talk tonight. I reached out to Tyler earlier today to ask if I could ask the select board for a letter of support for a grant proposal that KELT is putting into NOAA's Transformational Habitat and Coastal Community Resilience Grant Fund. The grant application is due next week, and we've been talking with staff at Reed State Park, Department of Agricultural Conservation and Forestry, as well as so part of this grant would include some work to do restoration at the dunes and also along the road that goes out to Todd's Point, improving the crossing structure there and raising the road. The other thing that we are hoping to include in this proposal is a request for some of the additional funds that would be needed for constructing the culvert at Flying Point Road. I think we have about half of the funds from a separate grant source and need a little over 200,000, I think, or might be maybe like 175,000. I need to check the budget to be sure in order to finish that. And this NOAA proposal is bundling a bunch of projects from the region and asking for different projects. It's a suite of projects that are focused on increasing the resilience of habitat and infrastructure, including some town priorities. So I guess I would need a letter of support by Tuesday of next week. I haven't had a chance to draft one yet, but have been talking with Tyler about the town and KELT working to get that drafted later this week.
I would move to support the grant that Ruth has just.
I think, could we wait till we're actually in the business meeting, Aria? Because
Oh, sure.
I was going to suggest that we add this to the agenda,
Okay.
which is coming, the step coming right up. I would like to ask if KELT has any qualms about whether this money will whether the grant program will still exist next week.
Yes, we have qualms, but we're hopeful it still exists now. And this is it's funded with, I think, predominantly bipartisan infrastructure law funds. This is the third round of this funding source. The money has been through appropriations. I spoke with NOAA staff a couple weeks ago and they sounded relatively confident. Everything is changing so fast, so who knows for sure. But it seems it exists now, and it would be a shame to miss the opportunity to get this grant if it is able to go through. I think I'm hopeful because we're talking a lot about storms and flooding caused by storms, and it doesn't seem to hit on a lot of issues that are kind of hot button issues. I think we're going to be really thoughtful about the phrasing we use in this proposal in terms of climate change. Just not sure knowing what the response would be to that. So just being thoughtful about the language that we use and the priorities of the current administration and doing the best we can. So I can't guarantee that it will exist, but I think it'd be a shame to miss it if
Sounds good.
All right.
Is there any other public comment? I don't see any. So I guess I'll turn it
So
over to you.
next up, we would have items to be added or removed from the agenda. And before I jump to Bronwyn or Aria, because I think we're all on the same page about adding Ruth's request to the agenda under new business.
I wasn't on.
And
video.
gonna hit mute real quick. I've waited so long to do that too to Bob. I'm kidding, Bob. I had to make a joke. But effectively, we're gonna be deleting the executive session tonight. There is no update that we need to give tonight, so that's a good thing. We will also be adding the certified ratio declaration form to the items to be signed. We had it in one spot on the agenda, but not at the bottom where I need selectmen to sign off. There will be 2 deeds, cemetery deeds, that need to be corrected due to a typo that we caught before.
They got filed.
So that is a good thing. And lastly, we were hoping to add Ruth's request to new business. So however the board wants to address or tackle that, and then we can go from there. Lastly, on the same moving agenda around, we do have a prospective deputy town clerk and deputy treasurer for ratification of that appointment tonight. And I would just say, see if we could move that item up in the agenda so folks don't have to stay unless they want to. Snowplow contracts are riveting stuff.
I've got no problem with moving that up.
I don't either.
Good, thank you.
And we're okay with adding new business discussion about the Celt request?
Sure.
All right.
Yes.
Celt request. And so with that, we have no scheduled appointments. And I'd say let's do the minutes and review, and then we'll pull right up for the ratification of appointment of a deputy treasurer and clerk.
I'd move that we table the March meeting minutes.
Thank you, Aria.
Second,
Thank you, Bronwyn.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. 3-0, those are tabled. And we have no items for review, so we jump down to new business for the ratification of appointment of a deputy treasurer and deputy clerk. And I believe our personnel liaison has a recommendation.
thank you. Make sure I'm not, yeah.
You have
Okay,
pizza or chicken nuggets?
You're not muted, but we're gonna mute someone else.
Sorry. It's always exciting when something comes on the screen because somebody has turned a page or is talking to somebody else or calling the dog. Anyhow, yes, as personnel liaison, I'm happy to report that we do have a recommendation. I would like to move to hire Catherine Farina as deputy treasurer and deputy town clerk, and I'd like to speak to that motion. If there's a second.
Second,
Thanks. First of all, I would say that we had 2 applications. All of the I believe you've all seen the actual written applications. They were shared with the office staff that will be working with this individual, our finance director and our town clerk. And both of them were able to participate either in the direct interview or subsequently by phone. The job itself, I just would say for the public in attendance, the emphasis of the job was refocused due to changing events, which seem to be the story of life right now. Originally, we had focused on the urgent need for a deputy clerk to handle election procedures and process absentee ballots because we expected there would be a contested race for town clerk and the no one in the race is allowed to touch ballots. However, our current clerk, Alex Kelly, has chosen not to file papers. Therefore, there will not be a contested race for that office. However, at the same time, at following executive session at our last meeting, we granted half-time medical leave to our finance director and treasurer, and we need to provide additional support for that position. So that's become the focus of our search and influenced our recommendation tonight. I would also like to thank Sarah Mancini for stepping up to offer her time and talents once again in support of the town. We're very appreciative of that, and that really is the substance of my report. We would like ratification to hire Catherine Farina, better known as Kathy, and she hopes to start right away. Any questions?
I don't have any.
I don't either.
So we've got the motion, it's been seconded, so all in favor?
And that is a unanimous vote, 3-0.
Welcome,
Kathy,
Kathy.
would you like to offer any thoughts, say hello, or?
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to serving all of you and meeting those of you I don't know.
It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you very much. And hey, enjoy those snowy,
Yes.
whatever it is right now.
It's snowing right now in Five Islands.
It's snowing here, and that's only because we're gonna talk about the contracts.
Yep.
Keep it
Yeah.
fresh in mind. So we had no items for review. And finally, this go round, we will be able to approve the certified ratio declaration letter. And I would ask that the select board propose a motion to certify at 100% because of our statistical revaluation. I would just note that the second piece of information that we're certifying as well, Mary and I went over these numbers. Total number of homestead exemptions in Georgetown will be 320 next year. The total valuation of that is $8 million before it goes through many iterations of slicing that pie to something much smaller. And the fact that our mill rate was 6.02. So I just wanted to be transparent of everything that we'll be signing off on, but I hope we could get a motion, something to that effect.
I move to certify at 100% based on our statistical revaluation.
I second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Unanimous. The last thing I'd add on the business we just finished is that had we not undertaken that statistical revaluation, which really led to a lot of our abatement discussions over the last few months, we would have been at 53%, which would have foregone all state funding and would have likely increased the net impact on taxpayers. I'd also just note that this is the first select board meeting we've had since December without an abatement application on. Though I would remind the board that we have until May 30, so they will likely return, but we'll take this reprieve happily tonight. I'll jump into correspondence and just share that late yesterday afternoon, towns around the state received notice from the state of Maine's Emergency Management Agency that BRICS funding, the Building Resilient Community Funding Program that FEMA manages, has been ended. That is the program that we were working with the Friends of Seguin Island Lighthouse Station. I have reached out to MEMA today to confirm that yes, in fact, this means what I think it means in terms of that grant that we put in for. And across the board, they are fielding many calls, so I know they will get back to us. But I did want to raise that right to everyone's forefront that we're still in some pretty stormy waters on funding, especially where it comes federally. I wanted to note that we're in receipt of the Department of Marine Resources Shellfish Transport Permit, which is the seeding project that the Shellfish Committee was working on over by Reed State Park. I included the Saginaw County Sheriff's monthly incidents reports, as well as the signed memorandum of understanding for the backup EMS services. That has now gone through and is in effect. Maine Municipal Association sent along their legislative bulletin number 10 of all the great happenings in Augusta. So that is the good news. The other bulletin that came from Maine Municipal Association was an action alert on the budget and funding. And in recent weeks, there have been a group in Augusta that has filed for a people's veto on one of the two budgets the legislature is currently working on. If that veto went into effect, just paraphrasing the action alert, it will create a lot of ripples that impact towns specifically on where revenue sharing and other funds that we rely on would be coming from. There are a lot of moving parts with all of that right now, but again, we'll strive to keep everyone up to speed on these changing impacts because they definitely will have an impact. I do know that Mary, in terms of the budget, is looking at lessening what our anticipated revenue sharing numbers are based on this. Though we also have a tool in our tool chest that if things were dire prior to commitment, we could always have another special town meeting.
Right.
But again, those are many ifs and whats that will probably change by tomorrow with the way the climate's been. And the last thing in correspondence, I just wanted to flag the board that Trio is working on committing an update to their software. And any chance and opportunity we get to tell them to improve valuation reports, I will be continuing to funnel that on because they are not as intuitive as we'd hope.
Right.
Were there any questions or yes, Bronwyn?
First of all, on the agenda, Tyler, it says asterisk indicates the need for a motion. And there are a lot of things on this list that have an asterisk that I can't imagine what the motion would be.
So the asterisk, the non-yellowed asterisk indicates that a copy was provided to the select board.
Okay.
The yellow star versus an asterisk, though 6 of one, half dozen of the other, is where we take a vote.
Okay.
So we definitely don't need to take votes on correspondence.
Okay. Well, I printed it in black, so it doesn't show up the yellow. I just wanted to comment on the action alert from the Maine Municipal Association, because I think it's very important that we stress to our residents that this entire action, if it passed, if they got the requisite signatures on this people's veto, and it then passed at the polls, it would have serious consequences for the property tax in our town. The budget that has been passed, that's been testing, includes appropriations for K-12 education, for the revenue sharing program, and for supporting county jail operations. So those are critical, and they make up a big part of our budget. And it's not something that it requires attention, is what I'm getting at. It requires a sense of urgency among our citizens because it affects us directly. Short of saying anything truly political, I will shut up.
And my expectation, Bronwyn, is that we'll continue to get the MMA emails and bulletins, and that we'll bring you every time we have a meeting. For those of you who are tuning into this live or on our YouTube channel later, we will continue to apprise you because it is a large concern for our property taxes and the cost that we may end up bearing. But at this point, the next step would be to see if they get enough signatures, and I think we'll know that by early June. I
Yes.
think June 8 or so. Okay, so
So don't sign the petition is the first step. I mean, you may be approached at the supermarket. A lot of times we sign petitions because we don't even know how we're going to vote on the issue, but we want to put it on the ballot. If you believe in the legislative process, this issue should never be on the ballot. It's an attempt to go around all of the legislative processes about hearings, about committee meetings, about coming to a consensus. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But yeah, hopefully it never gets to the ballot.
And agreed in the sense of urgency. We will continue to monitor these and whatever other changes are continuing to swirl. I know that the legislature is working on a second budget now.
right,
And so there's just a lot of moving parts, but as Ari had mentioned, and as Bronwyn, we will continue to keep folks apprised, share the information. as it's good and current and keep our eyes on what could be coming next.
Right. I think in particular, services that would affect our residents, like, anybody who's tapping into resources at the jail.
Right.
Or obviously any of the K through 12 schools in this county, for instance, that any of the kids would be going to, and outside this county, because some of our secondary students go outside this county. So all things that matter to y'all, obviously we will keep those in the forefront.
Any other thoughts regarding correspondence? If not, I'd note that there were no continuing items on the agenda, and I would turn this over to board members for their updates.
I had the planning board, and they're starting to get some of their surveys back. Still waiting on that, nothing new there, but that's about the only thing from that. And on the Shellfish Committee, they got that ordinance draft to you, and they've been working on that. Is that something we're gonna just deal with later?
We will tackle shellfish a little bit
Okay.
later.
And that was, getting that was their big thing at that meeting. And beyond that, I think that's all I've had so far.
Thank you, John. It's early in the month.
I was just gonna say, it's still early in the month, but before we move on from John's, can we get a reminder, either John or if Bob can put it in the chat, of the return date on the survey, just so that we're bumping that in people's.
The return date is technically due tomorrow,
That's what I thought,
but I
okay.
did speak with Bob Trebona just before this meeting.
Mhm.
I have heard from 2 property owners in Georgetown that live in states not near here
Yeah,
that are worried that they've posted, but it hasn't gotten here yet. And in speaking with Bob, if folks get them in a timely manner, we'll make sure that it's included and go with
Great.
postmarks. And
Okay.
just for what it's worth, it's been amazing that we've gotten so many surveys. Our post office
Yeah.
box was full and they gave us a bucket, so.
that's good. I did have somebody ask me, a community member asked me if they can drop them in the Dropbox, and I assumed yes. But I
Yes,
said I would confirm. Okay,
and
great.
we actually pulled one out tonight as I
Okay.
was
Oh.
greeting John at the door, one of
Okay.
those surveys, so.
Okay, great. So Dropbox is fine, Post is fine, and there's a grace period, it seems.
Yes,
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Bronwyn or Aria?
I don't have anything from committees. I would note from another personnel standpoint that we are advertising again, essentially, a position at the fire department as an assistant, and we discussed, I think, at our last meeting, or maybe in the executive session, a request from the fire chief to increase the pay for that position, noting that there is in fact money in the budget this fiscal year for it. But what I learned in conversation with him this week is also that he's hoping to hire for more hours based on a grant that he has received from a statewide program to assist emergency resources, EMT resources. And that, as well as a conversation with Mary about a grant from the Island Institute that the Shellfish Commission received, I believe, prompts me to mention for public consumption that any entity in the town that is interested in getting a grant or applying for a grant needs to go through the town office, and if it requires any kind of municipal participation, they need to get the approval of the select board. These were 2 instances in which the finance director was not aware ahead of time of the application, of the rules for the grant, and it affects reporting, and it affects the budget, because when money is coming in to the town, it has to be reflected in the budget as much as when it's going out. So that's just an observation that I hope will reach the people who need to hear it. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Aria?
I have a similarly brief report, the Get to Know Your Neighbor event is May 4, Sunday, May 4, at, hosted, of course, by the town, the rec committee, and it's at the GCC. So 12 to 2 that day. And that's when our next Citizen of the Year will be receive her or his award or their award. We never know. 1 year, a couple years, there's been 2 of them. So, and I believe that's it. None of my other committees have met.
So there will be white smoke on the 4th. We will have a Citizen of the Year.
That's right. That's right. And we have our vendors, our vendors for the food that day, gonna be Maddie's Periwinkle Pies, and the store is donating some items, so that's wonderful, and the Osprey signature soup and probably a salad.
That's
So
awesome.
be sure to come. And that's it. Thanks.
I was planning on it, but those pies are definitely gonna get.
Yes. It's all good stuff.
So I would jump in very quickly onto the town administrator update. First, as noted in our moment of silence, we have lost our Boston Post cane holder, Jack Schneider, and the town is in the process of identifying the next Boston Post cane recipient. We do have the next few folks that are next eldest in town or most senior citizen, depending on the verbiage. What I will say is that in the past, there have been folks who have declined the honor for all host of reasons. So I'm hoping I'll have more information to report on the Boston Post cane side of things by the 22nd, if not before by email. But I would just note that tonight we wanted to make it a night in memory of Jack as well on that front.
And you realize that was his son who passed too.
Yes,
I mean, so
it was a
we
rough
lost a
week.
lot. It was a lot of losses.
And
I appreciate-
Jack was absolutely thrilled to have the cane. He just wanted to be able to keep it. He said it was snatched away from him, and he wanted to go strut his stuff out in the community with it, I think. So you might want to think about getting a replica that we could assign out.
We had considered that the last time, that was actually something we had, talked about a little bit. Seeing if we could get a replica for something like that.
And I will note that Jack on more than one occasion came in just to keep an eye on his cane. So definitely very much will be missed. I wanted to touch base about ARPA funding. At our last meeting, we were brought up to speed about how ARPA funds are now looking to be recouped federally. Georgetown's not in a spot at this point where we need to be worried about that because we followed all of the labyrinthine processes with ARPA. Tomorrow, the feds will be putting on a webinar that I will be signing on to around 2. They're updating everyone on reporting requirements. I would note that our reporting requirement is due by April 30. That's a major priority. But Mary and I felt that before we jumped in, we wanted to see if anything has changed federally on their reporting requirements. So I will report back what I find out from that, but we will definitely make those deadlines well ahead of time. We will be touching base again in a minute on that letter of support for Kelt, so I can move on from that. In terms of the budget update, I just want to keep the board aware. The FAC was going to meet today. That meeting had been postponed till tomorrow. Following that FAC meeting, Mary will work with them to finalize budget docs and distribute them to the full board. Hopefully no later than 4/18, most likely much sooner. The FAC will present the budget to the full board on the 22nd. And at that point, it becomes this board's document that we can begin deliberations on in those early months meetings. I would note that get to know your neighbor invites. I just want to share with the board that the town office staff have been working to gather addresses for the new residents. And I'll be turning those over to Judy Teller tomorrow. I would note that this was a team effort. We had Alex going through her varied list of records, as well as going through all of the deeds that went through in the last year and their declaration. So we will be having a sizable list to get off to Judy, and that's a good thing. I would also note that I spoke with Representative Hepler last week about possibly scheduling an appointment on our agenda at a subsequent meeting where she can provide a legislative update to the board and answer any questions of what's going on. I wanted just to poll the board. She wanted me to check with you first if that was something that would be welcome. And if so, we can work on getting that scheduled. Is there any objection to that kind of update? I think it's very pertinent right now.
I do too. So no objection
I
here.
don't have a problem with it.
All
Thank
right.
you for thinking of that, Tyler.
Absolutely. And the last bit of news that I will share in my update, earlier today, Town-Owned Property Management Board member Mark Donovan was in reviewing the old files regarding the acquisition of the wharf back in the seventies. And in his queries, he found some great correspondence that's now on our Facebook page, but not everyone on the board's on Facebook, between Ed Pert, chairman of the select board at that time, and Walter Cronkite. And I would just note that Ed had been trying to get Walter Cronkite to do a story on the acquisition of the wharf. And while Cronkite had said that it was something they'd look into, he praised the town for their foresight. And I just want to state all these years later, he was clearly right. If anyone wants to see that, I can make copies available. Was a fun highlight today, just to
That's
find
great.
out. We had no idea behind us was Walter Cronkite all this time. So with that, if there aren't any questions for me, we would jump into old business. And this is where we'd get on to the draft shellfish changes. I don't have a copy in your inbox today. I got it very late this afternoon. Effectively, at a previous meeting on March 25th, we sent off the Shellfish Committee's revisions to the ordinance hearing. At their last meeting, the Shellfish Committee had decided that they wanted to change the agent fee for non-town office sales. We have one agent in town at Sagadahoc Bay Campground. The existing agent fee does not cover the cost of the credit card processing. And so if the board's comfortable, we can send that off to hearing tonight with that additional, or if you'd like to wait and see it in writing, I just have to work on formatting because there've been a couple of computer iterations that made it not ready for prime time. But
Mhm.
context was all of the edits we already sent along regarding waiving of fees for senior citizens and juniors,
Right,
as well as this specific piece of the agent fee. And I do want to just make clear, the agent fee would not be something on our fee schedule. That's a
Right.
specific fee for a different purpose.
right. And it's, I'm comfortable going forward and as I recollect, it's, changing from $1, which was abysmal, to $5.
Yes,
Right. I'm perfectly fine with going forward.
yes,
Yes.
Brahma.
Well, I'm confused about why it isn't, what other fees are not on the fee schedule? It's a specific fee for a mooring. It's a specific fee for a commercial fisherman at the wharf. It's a specific fee for a mooring at the recreational float. So how is this different that it doesn't get into the schedule, but it's just in the ordinance?
I would say because the agent fee is more of an income-based fee, you're paying that person for processing the transaction. So in theory,
Okay.
we don't have the agent fee for motor vehicle registrations on our fee schedule.
Right.
Though if that's something we wanted to down the road look at, we could, but we've never looked at the agent fee side on there up to now, but it's all very new as well.
So it's
But
more
isn't-
like, it's not a fee, it's a reimbursement or it's a,
It's an expense.
It's the
Yeah.
cost of doing business.
Yeah.
yeah,
But, yeah, so it's
it's
more
a
what we-
payment, it's not a fee.
Yes,
So
But
the
the state-
payment to the agent is being raised from $1 to $5. That
yes.
makes sense to me. Um,
So could we entertain a motion to send that on to the hearing?
So moved. I move to send the ordinance, change on to hearing without further delay.
Thank you very much.
second,
Right, all in favor?
All right, and that is unanimous of those present. So we have two more yellow asterisks on the upcoming town meeting determinations. So at the last meeting, we did some research on upcoming town events, specifically the ordinance public hearing, date, time, location, and setting, budget public hearing, and then I'll update the board after on candidates night, because we're still waiting until Thursday to have talked to every candidate. But the proposal tonight is that the ordinance public hearing be slated for May 6th at 6 PM at the town office in hybrid fashion. And I believe that one specifically hasn't changed from last week.
Right,
So if we could codify that,
yes.
a motion on each would be helpful.
I move that we schedule the ordinance public hearing for May 6th at 6 p.m. in a hybrid environment, live at town office and Zoom for the hybrid side.
Thank you, Aria.
And also recorded.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you that I really do not like the 6 p.m. start time. And I just wonder how many people, how many public are on this call today?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I think we talked about that because we were
13,
doing other public
14.
hearings at 6.
Right.
And if we're gonna change it at all, because I'm at a conference and I have an evening event, I would ask that it be no later than 6:30, please.
Well, if everybody else is happy with, I'm just going to say that I hate the 6 p.m. start time. However, I'm just one person, and if everybody else doesn't mind when they try to eat dinner or serve dinner or cook dinner, it's okay.
So we have a motion, but we don't have a second yet. And I will make note of that, Bronwyn, that 6 p.m. is,
Well, I mean,
Well,
do you want a
can-
second?
I'll second it. I mean, I can second it if that's the thing.
All right, any further discussion on that?
sure, I mean, I'm happy to do 6:30. Why don't we look at 6:30?
Would we
Is
wanna,
that closer to?
what we could do is we could move all of the, I just think in terms of advertising, I'd like us to be consistent. If one of them's gonna be at 6, do them all. If
I
at
agree.
6:30, we can make that work as well. But I just, in terms of times, I think it's important to make sure they're all consistent.
I agree, and I was gonna suggest the same. Would 6:30 be a better fit for your schedule, Bronwyn?
Not really. I mean, I think 7 was a traditional time, and I would prefer that, but that's just me. And we didn't do any kind of research to determine the rest of the world. So I'm not going to try to impose my personal feelings about it onto the, I think, we could have asked the committees through the month which time was better. Some committees are meeting at 6. So perhaps that's better, but sometimes a hearing is a little different from a committee meeting where somebody might be zooming in from work, for instance, on a couple of my committees, or have another commitment that evening. I don't want to hold this up. I mean, I think that it has to go. I notice there are things in the chat, but maybe they're all from the same person.
It appears we have a public member request for 7 o'clock. So,
But again, it's only a sample of 1 or 2 people, which is probably not indicative. I
And what
certainly
we could-
agree with the date and the hybrid and the location.
the other thing that one of the reasons, as I recall, we were doing 6 o'clock is that it is easier for town staff, for town office staff to start at 6 and knock it out of the town office later at night.
Right.
So getting out at 8 versus 9,
If it's 8.
if it's 8.
Would, so,
Well, I think we should go ahead with your plan and take note of what response is. Either everybody will love it or you'll get complaints, and it's going to be recorded. So if you can't make it at that time, you'll be able to check it out later.
So
so are we good with the motion of 6 that was moved and seconded? So,
It might as well be 6.
Yep. Okay, nope, so
We need to vote.
so we're gonna vote all in favor of it?
I am seeing 2,
I'm going to abstain.
2 to 0 to 1. Thank you, Bronwyn.
And
I got to shake it up sometimes,
Absolutely. You gotta make sure the minutes don't just say unanimously vote.
We disagreed a few times, just a few.
So I would note that the next one up tonight for a vote would be the budget public hearing on May 14th. 6 p.m. I have spoken with the principal and we can use the Georgetown Central School Gymnasium. We will work to set that room up in a fashion where the owl and all of it works. And we'll be putting some good forethought into that. But 6 PM, May 14th, Georgetown Central School Gymnasium and hybrid.
That's good.
Is there a motion?
I'd move that we schedule the public hearing on the budget for May 14, 6 o'clock in person at the school gym, hybrid over Zoom, and this will be recorded as well. Again, at 6 PM, May 14, at the gym and hybrid.
All right.
Is it, are you, John seconding?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion?
Oh,
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
I see 2 to 0 to 1 opposed again. Or
Abstaining.
one, that's what I meant, 1 abstention again. And the last one tonight, we do not have a vote slated for, but I wanted just to
Okay.
update the board on where we stand. Candidates night has been scheduled for either May 20th or May 22nd. That is a Tuesday or a Thursday at 6 PM. Location would be the Georgetown Central School Gymnasium, hybrid fashion, recorded. And Nancy Kinner, I've spoken with, is enthusiastic on either of those days and is holding them open. The reason we're not voting tonight is I have been polling candidates as they return their petitions on if either of those dates have pre-existing commitments. To date, there have been none, but we do have a handful of papers left, so we will formally schedule that at the next meeting if folks are comfortable.
Indeed, I would just note, it doesn't make a particle of difference to this event, but the 22nd, I'm scheduled for knee replacement surgery.
So we're gonna be pushing.
So
for
I
the
probably won't be on Zoom either.
Well, we will make sure, Bronwyn, we'll try to shoot for the 20th to make sure you can be there and not have to be thinking about it on a day of the surgery.
I guarantee you I won't be thinking about it.
Fair enough. And so with that, we get into new business. We've already ratified the appointment of Catherine Farina as the deputy treasurer and deputy town clerk. And so we have the Kelt request and the selection of winning snowplow bids. We could go either of the order on those.
Whichever one.
Why don't we start with snowplow bids then? And so I would just update the public that we received 2 bids for municipal areas and we received only 1 bid for the roads portion. I would say for the municipal areas, Maine Moss Incorporated bid $24,000 for the year 25-26, $27,000 for year 26-27, and 27-28 was for $30,000, a total of $81,000. The Savoy and Son bid for year 25-26 was $39,900. For year 26-27, it was $41,900. And on year 27-28, it was $42,900. And so I would also just note, and John will disclose it in a minute, he will be abstaining from this discussion. So we do need a motion to select one of those bids because we have to break them up separately. They're separate contracts. Bronwyn?
I move to accept the low bid from Maine Moss for the municipal plowing contract.
Second,
Any discussion? Seeing none.
given the difference, if you're looking at the numbers, 124,700 for one bid and 81,000 for the other bid. So as we discuss any potential concerns about our funding changing, consistent with the MMA bulletin that we just referenced, these are places that we need to be as frugal and fiscally responsible as we can. This is a choice that we.
And John is recusing himself, so I think we could vote, maybe?
All right. All in favor? I'm seeing 2 in favor, to none opposed, and any abstentions.
I have to.
There's nobody left, Tyler.
Perfect. Well, I was looking at John to raise his hand, but we used to do that on the school board, but I digress. 2 to 0 to 1, and so that bid has been accepted. And in terms of the roads contract, we only received a bid from Maine Moss for year 25-26 in the amount of $338,600, in years 26-27 of a total of $358,600, and in years 27-28, $378,600, for a total of $1,075,800. Is there a motion?
Sure. I move to accept the bid from Maine Moss. And I would go further and say that I really appreciate the job they've been doing for the town for the past several years.
I second the motion on both counts.
All right. Seeing that, all in favor? I'm seeing
Aria?
to 0 to 1 abstention. Thank you. And so the last item of business on tonight's agenda was an addition, and it's to discuss the Kelt request to draft and sign a letter of support to return to them no later than Tuesday.
I would move that we pursue in conjunction with Kelt the grant opportunity as described by Ruth.
Second.
All right,
All in favor?
3-0, perfect. And I would just advise the board that Ruth and I will be touching base later this week, and I would say expect most likely a Monday or Tuesday request for signature. So, and we'll cross that bridge. And with this instance, if we have to scan something to folks, we can make it work too. So with that, I turn this back over to John. Our executive session was canceled tonight for public comment.
Is there any public comment out there? I don't see any.
Oh,
All right, well, I move to adjourn.
and that was at 6:47.
Nice.
Second.
All right.
That was a second to the motion to adjourn,
Yeah.
Tyler.
All in favor?
Thank you, Bronwyn. Perfect.
Thank you.
And with
Good
that,
night, everyone.
Good night, folks.